The great Vedanta sage Nisargadatta had a saying: to be unattached to thought in the waking state is the greatest devotion. Now, I read this not too long ago, and it's sort of been staying with me. I mean, it's actually very much been staying with me as sort of a koan, as a riddle, a question that has no answer, so I can't really believe it with my mind anyway. But it's been sinking in as something that I need to live in my life in order to really open to a full or a more fully and thoroughly fulfilling self-inquiry. If you've been listening to me give these talks for a while, I do talk a lot about thinking and what does it really mean. So when he says to be free from thinking or to be unattached to thinking, he means to be unattached to the flow of our thinking, because our thinking is continuous. And we don't have to make our mind a blank slate in order to be free from thinking. In other words, when the Zen master Hakuin says, our thought now being no thought, our singing and dancing is the voice of the Dharma. In other words, we don't know what thinking is. So if we're unattached to what we don't know, we can become more open to what actually is here. It's always here and now. And we can develop a sense of being devoted to what actually is, what actually exists. So oftentimes masters will say that, all there is God. All there is the ultimate reality. That everything else is just a reflection of this ultimate reality that's always here. And this ultimate reality is what gives rise to all of our experience. When we begin to settle down, let our thoughts go free, let them go, let them do what they want to do, go where they want to go. Just let them flow by. We open to a reality that has no limits. The only limits are what we impose on our consciousness with our ideas of inside, outside. So in deep contemplative practice, we begin to question, is there really an inside or an outside? Do our thoughts come from inside our mind, inside a body, inside our head? Or do they originate from some mysterious place outside? So many Zen masters will tell us, inside and outside are just ideas. Is there really any inside or outside beyond our ideas? So if we watch our thoughts go by, notice that we experience a gap in between successive thoughts. In that experience of a gap between thinking, where is inside and outside? Can you really feel the difference between inside and outside in that gap before thinking, before we limit something with our thoughts? So staying with this gap between thoughts, we develop a sense of our just being here. And we all share that presence, that oneness, that here and now awareness. Even though our objective experience among the millions and billions of people here on our planet is completely different for each one of us, that sense of being right here and now is always the same. That's our oneness. And that's the source of love. That love is, in this sense, it's not a state of mind, it's a state of being. It's the recognition of our shared being. So that recognition of our shared being becomes more present and more palpable, more alive for us when we let go of our ideas of inside and outside, of good and bad, of big and small. So if we're willing to be still, notice our breath and the energy of our life force flowing with our breath. We'll notice that gap as we let go of our thinking. The ideas, the sensation of rigidity between inside and outside begins to relax. Our boundaries become more porous, more flexible, sort of like ice melting. And you can actually have the experience of, say, listening to an airplane roaring overhead. And you can have the experience of simultaneously experiencing that sound from the outside and from the inside simultaneously. That it's never one or the other, it's both at the same time, at the same now, in the same aware presence of our essential being. Sometimes this will come as very normal and just happenstance. It can also be kind of a shocking experience. You may be sitting somewhere in a peaceful place meditating, and you may suddenly find there's a bird in a branch above you that lets out a peaceful and soothing little cry, little chirp. And you can actually feel it right as that chirp. You can feel a sensation, a blissful sensation vibrating through your body. And it's sort of a shocking, but there's an overwhelming actuality to the realization that you now know what it's like to feel a sound. That our thinking and feeling, that our hearing and feeling, more precisely, come from the same source, a real gut level experience of that. They're coming from the same source. They're deeply connected, and that deep connection to the sound outside and inside is simultaneous. The bird and our hearing and our feeling are all one manifestation of this mysterious presence we are. Free from our ideas, There's no thinking. The birds, there's the sound of the bird, there's the feeling. There's no thought about it. Maybe we think about it and we have all our ideas about it after the experience, but right there, right here, there's no separation. And there's a recognition of the shared being with the bird, our shared being with the bird. So in devotional practice, devotion means one with. We have many types of devotional practice. There's the Eastern contemplative tradition of devotion, a lot of people call it bhakti, devotional, in the Hindu religion. And there's some of that in the Christian religion too. But there's a natural inclination in us as human beings to want to reach out to a higher power. Right? And we assume that there is an actual entity out there. We begin with that. That's a higher reality, a higher consciousness, or the more fundamentalist Christian traditions, we think of it as something solid and real. There's a concrete entity, self, small self, little me, and there's the big God out there. That's the foundation for the traditional sense of the I-thou relationship that Martin Buber talked about. But in contemplative practice, we look inside and we ask these deep questions, like who is actually reaching out to the higher power? Is there really a higher power out there that we find? So in the deeper stages of contemplation, we stay with those questions in the middle of devotional practice, the feeling we have, the excitement or the thrill of realizing there is a higher power. But that higher power isn't out there. It doesn't have any own being out there. In other words, we say God is the all, but there is no all apart from God himself. The here and now is the all. Or as they say in Vedanta, he alone is. They'll say that in Bhakti too. He alone is, or she alone is the Divine Mother. But our essential being alone is. So to say, to be unattached to thought in our normal waking state is the greatest devotion, is to be one with, is to be devoted to our essential being. And we come to that place whether we follow devotional practices, singing songs, or just sitting in Zen meditation with just know, without making any object, concentrating on any object of experience, and just totally being, without making any effort at all, just being here, letting our thoughts go, and not making any effort to manipulate any object of our awareness at all. That is to be unattached to our thinking. And it's the greatest devotion to what we actually are, to what God actually is, and how we cultivate the love that is our shared being.